Imagine a world where people automatically listen to what you say, agree with your ideas, and support you without hesitation. It sounds like a fantasy, doesn't it? But what if I told you this is entirely possible? In a world driven by competition and self-interest, it's easy to forget the power of human connection. But what if I shared with you a secret that has the power to change everything? A secret that has been known by great leaders, successful entrepreneurs, and influential figures for years. This is the secret revealed by Dale Carnegie in his legendary book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. For nearly a century, this book has been a beacon of light for millions of people, guiding them towards more meaningful relationships and a better understanding of human interaction. But the question is, why do some people effortlessly connect with others while some struggle to make an impact? The answer lies in the timeless principles outlined in Carnegie's book. Principles that are as relevant today as they were when they were first introduced. And you won't want to miss a single second of this video, because what you're about to learn isn't just theory. It's a practical roadmap to creating genuine connections and influencing people in a positive way. So stay tuned and get ready to discover the secrets to becoming a master of human relations. Imagine this. It's the 1930s, and New York City is buzzing with activity. Among the crowd stands a man, his face pale and eyes vacant, staring blankly at a government office. Just moments ago, he'd walked through those doors brimming with confidence, ready to demand his rights as a worker. But now, defeated and dejected, he turns to leave. As he walks, his mind races. Every injustice, every grievance he's suffered on the job, years of frustration and resentment come flooding back. In that moment of despair, he sits down, takes out a piece of paper, and begins to write. He pours his heart and soul into the letter, exposing every mistake, every stupidity that he believes is the root of his misery. He writes about his boss, his colleagues, the system itself, anyone who's ever wronged him in any way. Finally, he finishes the letter, folds it carefully, and addresses it to his boss. Then, still shaky with anger, he drops it in the mailbox. But as he does, something inside him seems to break. He watches the mail truck drive away, carrying with it the last shred of his dignity. Now, sitting alone in his apartment, he feels a deep sense of emptiness. His anger has vanished, leaving behind only regret. What was he thinking, sending that letter? Did it really solve anything? No, it only destroyed the one bridge he had left. And now, defeated and disillusioned, he realizes the futility of his actions. This is the story Dale Carnegie opens his book with. A story about a man who thought criticism would set things right, but ended up making everything worse. Carnegie asks us, what if instead of writing that angry letter, the man had taken a different path? What if instead of pouring out hate, he'd written a letter filled with kindness and understanding? That, says Carnegie, is the first secret of dealing with people. Never kick the beehive. If you want the honey, because criticism only produces resentment, not results. Humans, by nature, are self-righteous. We always think we're right. So when we point out someone else's mistakes, they don't learn. They just get defensive. Like a bee under attack, they sting back, making the situation worse. Carnegie then shares the story of Al Capone, the infamous mobster who, when arrested, said, "I've spent my life giving people small pleasures, and I've only received criticism. I don't consider myself a criminal. I'm a good man who's been treated unfairly." Even a hardened criminal like Capone finds ways to justify his actions. So if figures like Capone can twist the truth to suit themselves, can we really expect our criticism to change anyone? Carnegie challenges us to look in the mirror and ask, how often do we criticize without truly listening? How often do we blame without understanding the reasons behind someone's actions? And finally, how often do we judge ourselves as right and others as wrong? So what should we do instead? Carnegie offers a simple yet profound solution. Understand before you are understood. Look for the reasons behind someone's actions before pointing out their mistakes. In the end, this isn't about being nice or diplomatic. It's about being effective. Because as Carnegie wisely puts it, human relations are not a battle of wits. Strength does not come from our ability to demand, but from our willingness to understand. One afternoon, in a simple cafe, a young entrepreneur sat with his head down. He had just lost a contract. He had been so focused on showing off his greatness so busy discussing his ideas that he had forgotten to listen to the person he was talking to. As he left the table, he was greeted only by a faint smile, a smile that sounded more like a subtle rejection than an affirmation. It was at that moment that he realized that his failure wasn't due to a bad product, but because he had failed to do one of the most fundamental things: give credit to others. We often get caught up in the need to be recognized, to be praised, to be seen as important. But a secret often forgotten is that others feel the same way. Every human being, without exception, carries within them a deep desire, the desire to feel significant. This is both a weak point and the greatest gateway to building influence. When we can make someone feel appreciated, we ignite a small flame within them, a flame that can turn an enemy into a friend and a stranger into an ally. History holds many stories of those who understood this secret. Charles Schwab, one of America's greatest steel magnates, was known not for his engineering genius, but for his ability to sincerely praise others. He would walk into the factory, pat his workers on the shoulder, and say, "I'm proud of you." Those simple words encouraged them to work harder, not out of fear of punishment, but out of a sense of appreciation. But true appreciation is different from empty flattery. Flattery is just a thin layer of sugar that quickly dissolves, while genuine appreciation is a solid foundation. People can feel the difference. When a teacher says, "It's great that you're trying so hard," "I appreciate it," students will feel encouraged to continue improving. But if a teacher simply says, "You're great, you're amazing," without any clear reason, those words will be empty, mere formalities that don't touch the heart. Imagine a company full of stress. Employees work hard every day, but never get recognition. Gradually, morale dwindles, creativity disappears, and loyalty crumbles. Compare that to another company where leaders never forget to say thank you, even for the smallest things. The difference is like night and day. In one, people work with a heavy heart. In the other, they work with their hearts, all because someone is willing to appreciate them. This simple power applies to all aspects of life. In a family, couples who show each other small tokens of appreciation every day will be stronger than those who are busy criticizing. In a friendship, a friend who knows how to show gratitude will always be missed. Even in business, clients who feel treated special will return, not solely for the product, but for the relationship. And here's the key. If you want to influence others, stop trying to appear important. Instead, make them feel important. Do it sincerely, with a sincere heart. Because ultimately, humans are not driven by logic alone, but by feelings. And the most fundamental feeling we all seek is the feeling of being appreciated. Once upon a time, in a large hall, hundreds of people gathered to listen to a young orator. His words were filled with logic, facts, and sharp analysis. But one by one, the seats began to empty. The audience was losing interest. Suddenly, a hush fell over the crowd as a man quietly took the stage. The old man had a soft voice, but it boomed through the hall. He didn't talk much about himself or his accomplishments. Instead, he leaned into the microphone and asked a simple, "What do you want?" The room that was emptying now erupted in conversation. People discussed their hopes, their dreams, and their challenges. The old man listened patiently, and when they fell silent, he continued, "You cannot have what you cannot name." At those words, the audience leaned forward, eager to hear more. And so the old man began to speak, weaving tales, sharing stories, and painting pictures with his words. He didn't preach or persuade. Instead, he shared ideas, planting seeds of thought. And by the end of his talk, the room was buzzing again, not with chatter, but with energy and excitement. People began to see the connection between what they wanted and how they could get it. They had found the missing link, and it was all because the old man had taken the time to ask a simple question. This is the great secret Dale Carnegie spoke of. The quickest way to win people's hearts is to talk about what they want, not about what we want. Just as a seed grows only in fertile soil, influence can only grow if it's planted within the interests of others. We can prove how important our ideas are, but if they don't connect with their needs, they will die before they have a chance to grow. Carnegie alludes to a simple example from everyday life. Imagine a salesperson passionately explaining the technical specifications of his product. But on the other hand, the potential buyer is only concerned with one thing: "What's in it for me?" When the salesperson stops talking about himself and starts asking, "What do you really need?" the conversation changes. Suddenly there's common ground. Not because the technology is advanced, but because the product meets the buyer's needs. This philosophy is also evident in politics. A candidate campaigning with grand promises often fails to resonate with the public if he only speaks of abstract programs. But when he mentions food prices, schooling for children, or better jobs, things directly relevant to daily life, then people feel, he speaks for me. Politics, business, even personal relationships are all subject to this simple law. People act not according to the logic of others, but according to their own interests. But there's a fine line separating selfishness from caring. Using others' interests as a gateway doesn't mean manipulation. This is precisely the true art, finding common ground where our needs and theirs can align. A wise leader doesn't simply say, "Follow me because this is important to me," but says, "Let's do this because this is important to all of us." In everyday life, this is as simple as asking before speaking. That afternoon, a nervous young man stepped into a meeting room. He was about to meet an important potential client. He had prepared his presentation materials, memorized every piece of data, and planned his words. But as soon as he entered, the client noticed only one thing: the smile on his face. Instantly, the tension faded. It wasn't the complicated words or the data that initially won him over, but something so simple: a genuine smile. You might think it's just a casual facial expression, but no. According to Dale Carnegie, it's a powerful tool that can change everything. In his classic work, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Carnegie emphasizes the importance of smiling. He says that a smile is a universal language that can transcend social, cultural, and even linguistic barriers. When we smile, our bodies send a message. "I'm glad to see you. I appreciate your presence." But the power of a smile doesn't stop there. Carnegie shares an interesting finding from a psychological experiment. When someone is forced to smile, their mood gradually improves. In other words, a smile is not just a window out, but also a gateway to happiness. Think about the great leaders who've mastered this art. Franklin D. Roosevelt, America's president during a time of crisis, was known for his warm smile. Amidst the burden of national problems, he still greeted people with a beaming face. People who came to see him often said, "It's as if our burdens are lifted just by seeing his smile." It's not just a facial expression. It's a contagious energy that makes people feel seen, appreciated, and accepted. However, Carnegie reminds us, a true smile can't be faked. A forced smile simply creates a stiff, easily readable mask. The key is sincerity. To that end, he suggests one small step. Learn to find what truly makes us happy when we meet others. Focus on the positive, and let that feeling reflect naturally on our faces. When the heart is truly happy, a smile comes without being asked. Just imagine the small difference these make in everyday life. A cashier who greets you with a smile makes customers want to return. A teacher who enters the classroom with a friendly face makes students more eager to learn. Even in personal relationships, a partner's smile when they greet you at the door can erase the fatigue of the day. All of these big changes stem from something so simple: a small curve of the lips, born of sincerity. Despite its simplicity, a smile is a social investment with immeasurable returns. It opens doors, breaks down walls, and plants seeds of trust. A smile is a wordless greeting, a silent promise, and a gift that can be given without cost. Yet its value is often more precious than gold. So, if there's one habit that can instantly change first impressions, one simple way to make the world friendlier to us, start with this smile. Because in the end, people may forget our words, but they will always remember how we made them feel. And often, it all starts with a smile. Have you ever had a moment where you realized that despite having said everything perfectly, something was off? Your words were right, your timing was perfect, but still, there was a disconnect. If you've experienced this, it might have been because you forgot a crucial element: the names of the people you were addressing. Imagine a young executive who's just been promoted. He enters the meeting room with confidence. He delivers what he considers a brilliant presentation. He speaks at length about his vision, the strategy, the technical details, but he does so without once mentioning the names of those present. To him, it might seem like a minor oversight, But to those sitting there listening, it feels like a significant omission. For any human being, there is no sound more beautiful than hearing one's own name called. As Dale Carnegie famously said, a name is a person's deepest identity. It represents history, pride, and even self-worth. When we sincerely say someone's name, we are essentially saying, "You matter. You are recognized. You matter." It's no wonder that people who are good at remembering and using names in conversation are often more likable. They tap into the deepest human need, the desire for recognition. History provides us with many examples of this. Andrew Carnegie, the American steel magnate, was known for his extraordinary ability to build relationships. One of his secrets was his ability to remember people's names. It didn't matter if it was a senator or an ordinary worker in his factory, he always greeted them by name. People felt respected and important, and for a worker living a humble life, being greeted by the owner of such a large company was not just an experience, it was an honor that would last a lifetime. We often underestimate the power of these small effects. Just consider a teacher who calls a student by name rather than just, "Hey you." The student feels valued, more motivated to learn, and feels connected to the teacher. Or a doctor who remembers a patient's name, not just their medical record. The patient will be more trusting, more reassured, and even more confident in their treatment. All of this stems from something seemingly simple, a name. But remembering names isn't just a matter of politeness, but also an exercise in respecting others. Many of us say, "I'm bad at remembering names," but the truth is we simply haven't paid enough attention. When we truly care, the name will stick. Because it's not the brain that forgets, but the heart that doesn't give it enough space. In this fast-paced world, a name is an anchor. It signifies that a person isn't lost in the crowd, that they aren't just a number, but a significant individual. So every time we greet someone by name, we are actually building a small bridge that strengthens the relationship. Therefore, if we want to avoid major problems in our relationships, whether business, friendship, or love, let's learn to remember and use names sincerely. One simple word can make someone feel seen, heard, and appreciated. And when that happens, the path to their heart is wide open. In the flickering glow of a chandelier-lit room, a man stood slightly awkwardly with a drink in his hand. The murmur of voices and laughter echoed around him, but he found himself at a loss for words. People bustled about, lost in their conversations, and he felt a pang of loneliness. Then a tap on the shoulder startled him. Turning around, he saw a man with a warm smile. "Tell me about what you like," he said, and something remarkable happened. The man began to speak, and at first his voice was soft, almost hesitant. But as the minutes passed, his words gained momentum, his eyes sparkled, and he became so engrossed in the conversation that he didn't notice the time slipping by. When the party ended and his friends approached him, he remarked, "That guy was amazing. What a great listener." But the truth was that the man had barely spoken at all. He had simply listened intently. That's one of Carnegie's great secrets to being a great conversationalist. We don't have to be the best conversationalist in the room, just need to be the best listener. People naturally love to talk about themselves. They derive a sense of identity and validation from their own narratives. So when someone genuinely listens to their stories, they feel valued, cared for, and ultimately liked. History is filled with stories of individuals who mastered the art of listening. Theodore Roosevelt, for example, was renowned for his extraordinary memory for the details of other people's lives. He remembered the name of a friend's horse, a guest's latest hobby, or a simple story shared in casual conversation. People who entered his office often commented, "He really cares about me," yet the secret was simple. Roosevelt didn't just nod and say, "Yes, yes." He truly listened. He looked beyond the words to understand the emotions and the silences behind them. In contrast, imagine a parent who, upon hearing that their child had a bad day at school, immediately starts problem solving. Or a friend who, instead of letting you vent, jumps in with solutions. These well-meaning actions can often do more harm than good. They signal that we're not truly listening, that we're more interested in fixing things than understanding the feelings behind them. So here's the irony. In an increasingly noisy world where everyone is eager to be heard, the ability to listen has become a rare and invaluable skill. Most people merely wait for their turn to talk. They don't truly listen. To be a great conversationalist, We don't need a silver tongue, we need a listening heart. Let's embrace the power of listening, not just hearing. Let's make space for others to share their stories, dreams, and challenges. And in doing so, we'll create connections that resonate, relationships that endure, and conversations that inspire. Because in the end, people won't remember how intelligent we were, but they will remember how good it felt to be listened to. A long time ago, at a busy train station, two salesmen were doing their best to promote their new product. The first salesman walked up to people and engaged them in lengthy discussions about the product's technical superiority, intricate features, and complex manufacturing process. He talked for a long time, but no one paid attention. People just nodded politely and eventually walked away. Then the second salesman came along. He didn't say much about himself or his product. Simply asked, "Imagine how much time you could save with this." Immediately, people stopped walking, stared, and started asking questions. Dale Carnegie emphasized that humans are creatures driven by curiosity and self-interest. If we want to engage others, we must talk about what matters to them, not what matters to us. Nothing is more boring than someone who talks only about themselves. Conversely, nothing is more captivating than someone who makes us say, "That's about me. That's relevant to my life." A man was trying to approach a woman at a party. He could talk about his job, his recent successes, or his expensive hobby. But if instead he asked, "What have you enjoyed most lately?" and then listened with genuine interest while she talked about her exciting trip, he would make much more progress. People like talking about themselves. It's one of the most satisfying things we can do. History also records great figures who understood this law. Henry Ford once said, "If there is one secret of success, it is the ability to see things from the other person's point of view, and to see things from his own point of view." This secret applies not only to business, but also to friendships, love, and even politics. The more we talk about things that excite others, the more attractive we become to them. However, it's important to remember that talking about someone else's interests isn't manipulation. It's a form of appreciation. It's our way of saying, "I see you. I care about what you care about." People can sense authenticity. If we're faking interest, they'll find out sooner or later. But if the interest is genuine, they'll open their hearts. Imagine a leader speaking to his team. If he only talks about company goals, people will feel unmotivated. But if he talks about how those goals could mean bigger bonuses, promotion opportunities, or personal pride, his team will work with a different energy. A small change in the focus of the conversation can change the entire atmosphere. Here's the secret to attracting people. Stop trying to be interesting and start being interested in them. When we enter their world, when we talk about things they care about, we don't just win their ears, we win their hearts. Because ultimately, people won't always be interested in us, but they'll always be interested in themselves. And when we can get there, that's when true connection is formed. Picture this. You're at a stiff business meeting. The room is cold. Everyone is tense. Suddenly, a man walks in with a serious face. He sits down, pulls out a document, and starts crunching numbers. There's no warmth, no smiles. Moments later, another person walks into the same room. She's got a bright, sparkling look in her eyes. Her face is beaming with a smile. And as she greets everyone, her voice rings with enthusiasm. "It's so great to meet you all today. I was really looking forward to this." Before you know it, the room transforms. People start smiling. The atmosphere feels lighter. The man with the documents even cracks a small smile. The woman's genuine enthusiasm broke through the tension, warming up the room. And here's the interesting part. No one questioned her enthusiasm. No one asked why she was so excited. Everyone simply embraced the energy. That's the magic of enthusiasm. It's infectious, makes others feel important. It creates a sense of belonging. It's like a magnet that draws people towards it. But here's a big question. Why do we lose this ability as adults? We often feel awkward about showing enthusiasm. We think it's childish or inappropriate. We worry about what others might think. But the truth is, when we hold back our enthusiasm, we also hold back our ability to connect with others. The famous writer Dale Carnegie once shared a simple secret. If you want people to like you instantly, show genuine interest in them with enthusiasm. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever met a child who wasn't curious about the world? Who didn't greet you with a smile? Kids are naturally enthusiastic. They're interested in everything. Their lack of inhibition makes them incredibly charming. As adults, we often admire that enthusiasm. We might even try to nurture it in children. But when it comes to ourselves, we tend to forget that same enthusiasm. Think back to the last time you entered a room full of strangers. How did you feel? Do you have the courage to walk in with confidence and a smile? Or were you hesitant, unsure of what to say or how to act? The truth is, we all feel a bit awkward sometimes. But when we choose to embrace that awkwardness, to replace it with enthusiasm, we open the door to instant connections. So here's your reminder. Don't hold back your enthusiasm. Let it shine through in every interaction. You never know who you'll connect with. Remember, people won't always recall what we say, but they'll never forget how we make them feel. So come to the table with a heart full of genuine enthusiasm. Let your smile be your guide and your curiosity be your compass. The rest will fall into place. Picture yourself in a meeting. Everyone is silent. The manager has just presented his idea, but suddenly someone interrupts sharply. That's wrong. I know a better way. In an instant, the room freezes. The manager's face turns red. He feels not only that he's been corrected, but also that his dignity has been trampled in front of everyone. From that moment on, not only is the idea rejected, but the relationship is shattered. This story illustrates a universal truth in human interaction. Truth, if presented incorrectly, can be more hurtful than a mistake left unchallenged. Our human ego is like a fortress, and once attacked, people become more focused on defending themselves than listening to what we have to say. In his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie asserted, "There's no quicker way to make enemies than to make someone feel wrong." We often think, but I'm right. Yet sometimes being right can lead us to arrogance and a lack of understanding. Carnegie wisely noted, "You may win an argument, but you'll lose someone." Throughout history, countless public debates, whether political, social, or academic, have ended not in mutual understanding, but in a stalemate of resentment. Each side stands firm, convinced of its own righteousness, refusing to budge an inch. In these situations, the thirst for victory overshadows the need for compromise. Even in our daily lives, we witness similar dynamics. Imagine a social gathering where a friend makes a factual error. Two responses come to mind. We could directly correct them, potentially embarrassing them. Or we could subtly provide the missing information while avoiding any embarrassment. The latter approach often preserves the warmth of the relationship far more effectively than momentarily satisfying our ego by exposing their mistake. Ironically, many people fear appearing stupid more than actually being wrong. When we make them feel foolish, they'll often shut down, refusing to listen to anything we have to say. However, if we allow them to maintain their dignity, they'll be more open to considering our perspective. The art of maintaining relationships lies in this, not being overly concerned with whether we're right, but rather focusing on how we can help others accept the truth with an open heart. True wisdom doesn't always lie in proving we're right, but in knowing when to step back and let others reach their own conclusions. People may not always recall our brilliant arguments, but they'll never forget how we made them feel when we disagreed. If we want to cultivate relationships, not enemies, let's learn from this. Resist the urge to say you're wrong. Instead, let's show humility. Allow others to maintain their self-respect, and the truth will find its own way. One afternoon in court, a young lawyer was arguing heatedly with an expert witness. He was desperately trying to pinpoint the weaknesses in his opponent's arguments, pressing them with evidence after evidence until finally the witness shook his head violently and shut down. He was no longer listening, determined only to defend his dignity. That's when the senior lawyer whispered to him, "You're not speaking to his mind. You're challenging his ego." Dale Carnegie taught a higher path. If we want to truly influence someone, don't attack them with rigid logic. Instead, let them feel that the idea came from within them. The human ego is a nearly impenetrable fortress when attacked, but it can open wide when appreciated. Look at how great leaders put this principle into practice. Abraham Lincoln, for example, was known for being very careful in his rebukes. He rarely said, "You're wrong." Instead, he would use phrases like, "In my opinion, there might be another way." With his humble tone, Lincoln not only maintained authority, but also won hearts. He knew that forced truth is rarely accepted, while gently persuaded truth thrives. In everyday life, we often get caught up in the urge to prove ourselves right. When a friend misquotes a news story or a coworker miscalculates a number, our tongues itch to say that's not true, the truth is. But often the result isn't enlightenment, but embarrassment and defensiveness. Yet, we could have chosen another path, asking gently or providing additional information in a non-patronizing manner. Carnegie reminds us, the human mind rarely changes through logic alone, but the human heart can be softened by the humility of others. By lowering our voices, by allowing others to feel respected, we not only convey the truth, we also preserve relationships. And often, relationships are far more valuable than simply proving ourselves right. Imagine if this principle were applied in every family discussion, office meeting, even public debate. The world would be much more peaceful. Not because everyone agrees, but because everyone feels valued despite their differing views. That is the art of interaction that transcends mere logic, the art of touching the heart. Ultimately, the high road to reason lies not in violent confrontation, but in gentleness. It's not in subduing your opponent, but in walking alongside them. Because ultimately, our goal isn't to win an argument. It's to win lasting friendship, respect, and influence. Imagine a busy restaurant late at night. Customer's furious because his order is late. He calls out to the waiter loudly. His eyes are sharp and his voice is filled with anger. The waiter could have defended himself, could have blamed the kitchen, blamed his coworkers, or even yelled back. But what he did was surprising. He bowed slightly, nodded, and said, "I understand exactly how you feel. Please tell me what happened." Instantly, the customer's anger subsided. Here's a secret revealed by Dale Carnegie. When people are angry or complaining, don't immediately argue. Let them vent. Patient listening is a safety valve that can prevent a bigger explosion. When people feel heard, their tension drops, and they are more open to dialogue. Carnegie emphasized that many conflicts escalate not because the initial problem is too big, but because people feel ignored. Like a pot kept on heating without ventilation, emotional tension can explode at any moment. By providing a space for people to vent, we actually speed up the cooling process. History provides us with many examples. Some great leaders are known as expert listeners. They don't rush to respond to people's or subordinates' complaints, but instead sit quietly, pay full attention, and let others speak to their heart's content. Often after venting, people no longer demand grand solutions. They simply want to feel appreciated. This principle is also very relevant in personal life. When a partner or friend is emotional, our natural reaction is to defend ourselves or fight back. But that's what makes the situation worse. If we can restrain ourselves, listen without interrupting, and show empathy, half the problem is solved before a solution is even discussed. Carnegie reminds us, a patient ear can be a weapon more powerful than 1,000 words of defense. Listening is not a sign of weakness, but rather a sign of mature self-control. It gives us emotional leverage and builds stronger bridges with others. And perhaps this is the greatest lesson of this chapter. Sometimes the best way to win an argument isn't by speaking louder or smarter, but by being quiet, listening, and letting the other person relax. Because only when their hearts are at ease can the door to true dialogue open. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a renowned master painter. One day he was visited by a young student who proudly showed him a painting he had worked hard on. The master looked at the painting and could not help but frown. The colors were stiff and the composition was unbalanced. Any normal person would have said, "Oh, this is terrible. Just do it again." But the master knew that wasn't the best way to go. So he looked at the painting again, and a big smile appeared on his face. Then he said quietly, "I like the boldness of your choice of color. There's energy in it. Maybe if we add a little balance here, your painting could come to life." The student nodded enthusiastically and got to work immediately, not feeling disheartened by the criticism, but encouraged by it. Dale Carnegie once said that criticism is a double-edged sword. If used harshly, it can wound people's pride and leave a lasting scar. But if used artfully, it becomes a sculptor's knife, refining character without destroying the spirit. The secret lies in the delivery. Criticism must begin with appreciation, not attack. Many people don't understand this. In offices, a boss often reprimands a subordinate in a loud voice, pointing out every mistake they made without acknowledging their hard work. What's the result? Decreased motivation, strained relationship, and the same mistakes repeated again and again. However, adding a little praise at the beginning can turn things around. It's like a bridge that allows people to hear difficult feedback without becoming defensive. Carnegie suggests that we should always start by highlighting the positive aspects of someone's work or character before mentioning areas for improvement. This way, people feel appreciated and are more open to what you have to say next. It's like a doctor who knows how to give bitter medicine. He coats it with a sweet coating, so it's easier to swallow. Criticism delivered with appreciation doesn't seem like an attack, but rather helpful advice from someone who genuinely cares. Think about a teacher who wants to help a student improve their writing. Instead of just pointing out all the mistakes, a good teacher will first say something nice about the student's work. You've written a good idea. The structure could be better. This way the student feels cared for and is more likely to take the feedback to heart. Same goes for personal relationships. If you want to help a partner or friend improve, start by sincerely acknowledging their goodness. Instead of saying, "You always do this wrong," say, "I appreciate your effort. Maybe there's a better way." When we begin with appreciation, others are more likely to listen to our feedback and be open to making changes. Ultimately, the art of criticism is not about pointing out who's wrong, but about helping others grow without damaging their self-respect. Wise criticism does not leave wounds, but rather kindles a fire of passion. And that is the key to building deeper, healthier, and more lasting relationships. The manager's face was red with anger. His team had just handed him the monthly financial report, and he quickly discovered a serious error. He could have berated his staff, saying something like, "How could you be so careless? How could this have happened?" But instead, he took a deep breath and said, "You know, the first time I was in charge of a report like this, I also made a miscalculation and got into big trouble. So let's figure out how we can fix this together." And just like that, the atmosphere shifted from tension to calm. No longer were they a team in trouble. They were colleagues working together to solve a problem. Dale Carnegie once said that if you want to correct someone without making them defensive, start by admitting your own mistakes. Think about it. We humans have fragile self-esteem. When we directly point out someone's weaknesses, their first instinct is to protect themselves. They become defensive, sometimes even resorting to blaming others. But if we open up and share our own past mistakes first, they feel safer and more open to accepting criticism. There's a quiet power in this approach. By revealing our own failures, we break down the walls of arrogance that often block the free exchange of ideas. We create a level playing field where everyone, including ourselves, is imperfect in learning. Our message is more easily received because we are no longer viewed as being in a superior position pointing down. We're seen as equals, sitting side by side on the same boat, navigating the journey of growth together. Think of great teachers. Rather than just lecturing, they often share their own past struggles with the topic at hand. This doesn't excuse their mistakes, but makes them more relatable and their lessons more impactful. Students feel more comfortable asking questions or admitting their own errors when they see their teacher is also a fellow learner. The same principle applies in parenting. A parent who says to their child, "I used to be a bit careless with my schoolwork, so I understand it's tough, but I'm learning to improve little by little," will be heard much better than a parent who says, "You're lazy and disorganized and you need to change." The second example comes across as judgmental and harsh, while the first one shows empathy and understanding. This principle isn't just a communication strategy. It's a reflection of character. Someone who can admit their own mistakes is someone worth respecting. They don't fear losing face because humility doesn't diminish their authority. Quite the opposite. In today's world, there's a growing admiration for leaders who show humility. They inspire more trust and respect when they say, "I'm not perfect. I make mistakes too," rather than pretending to be flawless. In conclusion, admitting our mistakes first isn't a sign of weakness. It's true strength. It takes courage to let go of our ego, to reveal our vulnerabilities. But from this space, we can build more genuine relationships and have a much deeper impact on those around us. As Dale Carnegie wisely said, a genuinely humble person has a quiet, strong power over others that can't be obtained by any other means whatever. So the next time you find yourself in a situation where you need to correct someone, consider sharing your own past mistakes. You might just find that you connect with them better and that your message has a much greater impact. Imagine you're in the office of a big company. New supervisor strides in, points to several staff members and booms, "You do this, you do that, and don't make any mistakes." Immediately, their faces fall. They hang their heads, outwardly obedient. But inside, resentment and reluctance brew. There's no motivation, only obligation. Now, Dale Carnegie once said something that's as simple as it is profound. No one likes to be told what to do. Humans, by our very nature, want to feel like we have a choice. The more we're pushed, the more we resist. But when we give others the space to feel involved, they not only follow, they also feel responsible. So instead of barking orders, Carnegie suggests a more subtle approach. Instead of saying, "Do this now," we can ask, "What do you think if we try this? Or would you mind helping me finish this part?" These simple questions make people feel valued. They are no longer just implementers, but partners in the process. Think about a time when a leader you respected didn't just tell you what to do, but asked for your input. Your ideas were considered, and that made all the difference. That's the magic of involving others in the process. We often see this in effective leadership. A great leader doesn't just give instructions, but invites others to contribute to shaping the direction. This way, the ideas that emerge feel like shared ownership, not just orders from above. The result is loyalty, not mere temporary compliance. The same holds true in personal relationships. A partner who says, "Can you help me with this?" will receive a more positive response than someone who says, "You have to do it." Wisely chosen words can transform an obligation into an opportunity to show love and care. Now, let's take this principle and apply it to the workplace. Imagine you're a manager and there's a new project that needs to be carried out. You need to do this task, or can you help me figure out how we can best approach this project? The latter invites collaboration and generates more buy-in. In both scenarios, you achieve the same outcome, but the second approach leaves a much better taste in people's mouths. It makes them feel valued and part of a team. That's the essence of Carnegie's lesson. The art of communication isn't just about what we say, but how we make others feel. When people feel treated as partners, not subordinates, they'll give more than we expect. That sense of ownership is what fuels true motivation. If you want others to follow you willingly, don't give them orders, give them choices. Don't just point the way, but invite them to walk with you. Because lasting influence isn't born of fear, but of respect. In the How to Win Friends and Influence People workbook, there's this story about a guy who messed up in a meeting. He was presenting data, and in a moment of panic, he showed everyone the wrong chart. Everyone in the room noticed the mistake and all eyes were on him. His face reddened and his hands trembled. It was obvious he was embarrassed. His boss had a choice: embarrass him further by pointing out his mistake, or save him from himself. She chose the latter. She said something along the lines, "Your presentation has opened up an important discussion. We may need to double-check the numbers, but I'm glad you had the courage to bring this up." In that one moment, she could have made him feel humiliated and ashamed, but instead she helped him maintain his dignity, and it made all the difference. This story reminds us of something really important. People need to be respected not only materially, but also emotionally. Our self-esteem is fragile. When it's publicly violated, the wound can linger for years. Carnegie emphasized that it's our duty to help others maintain their honor, even when they're wrong. That's how we build trust and understanding. Think back to the last time someone publicly humiliated you. How did it make you feel? Probably angry, resentful, maybe even vengeful. You felt the need to defend yourself, to justify your actions. It's a natural reaction, but Carnegie argued that it's not productive. We should learn from our mistakes and move on. But we can't do that if we're too busy protecting our ego. Carnegie tells a story about a skilled diplomat who was negotiating a treaty. After months of talks, the other party finally agreed to most of the terms. There was just one small issue: they refused to sign the document. The diplomat didn't try to force them. Instead, he left a blank space next to their signature and sent the document home. A few weeks later, the unsigned document made its way through the necessary channels and was eventually ratified by both parties. The point is, diplomacy works best when no one loses face. The same is true in everyday life. Think about the last time you had to correct someone. Maybe it was a family member, a friend, or a coworker. How did you do it? Did you point out their mistake or offer a gentle suggestion? Did you humiliate them or help them save face? The way we handle these situations determines the strength of our relationships. If we want to be influential, we must learn the art of helping others save face. It's not easy, especially when their mistake is obvious and everyone is watching. But if we can master this skill, we'll become better leaders, better diplomats, and better people. So the next time someone messes up in front of you, ask yourself, what would Carnegie do? How can I help them maintain their dignity? So that's what true influence is about. Not bringing people down, but lifting them up. And now we come to a crucial point that if you understand it, you will unlock the doors to success. Imagine a young coach leading a sports team that consistently loses. Every time his players fail to score, instead of saying, "You suck, you can't do it," he says, "You almost made it. Just a little bit more. I'm sure you can do it next time." From those simple words, the extinguished spirit is slowly rekindled. The players begin to believe they can, and that belief is what turns defeat into victory. Dale Carnegie emphasized that one of the greatest human needs is to feel appreciated for their efforts, not just their results. Harsh criticism can lead people to give up, but genuine recognition of every improvement, no matter how small, fosters the courage to keep trying. This is the secret of how a leader, teacher, or even a parent can encourage others to reach their full potential. He called it the power of encouragement. By showing appreciation for small steps, we instill in others the belief that they can go further. Nothing is more harmful to the human soul than a sense of inadequacy. And nothing is more healing than the encouragement that you can. This principle is evident in the stories of many great figures. Thomas Edison, for example, failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. But each time he failed, he saw it as a step toward success. Imagine if those closest to him had only criticized him without encouraging him. The world might never have known the light he created. Encouragement not only energizes, but also shapes history. In everyday life, we can practice the same thing. Boss who says, "I like how you organize the details of this project. Let's perfect it," will inspire more motivation than one who says, "You can't do it yet. Your work is wrong." A partner who says, "I see you're trying. I'm proud of you," will foster warmth, not disappointment. Appreciating small progress isn't just a communication trick, but rather an art of understanding the human soul. We all crave recognition. When someone sees our efforts and acknowledges them, we feel our lives matter. And from that sense of meaning comes the strength to move forward. Ultimately, motivation is the fuel that drives people to push beyond their limits. If we want to truly influence others, we need to instill it not with harsh criticism, but with contagious confidence. Because ultimately, everyone needs not only direction, but also reassurance that they are capable of achieving success. Have you ever seen a dog considered wild and dangerous? Everyone avoids it, treating it harshly. Even before it has a chance to show its true nature, this treatment makes it truly wild, living up to the label attached to it. But if someone says he's a good dog, he can be tamed, and treats it with love, the dog slowly changes. It adapts to the good name it was given. Dale Carnegie used this story as a metaphor. He taught that even humans tend to conform to the reputations and labels given to them by others. If someone is known as lazy, stupid, or unreliable, they often become trapped in that negative image. Conversely, if we give them a good name, such as being diligent, intelligent, or trustworthy, they will strive to maintain that image. Humans live to prove they are worthy of the trust placed in them. Carnegie advises us to be careful in our judgments. A leader who says, "I know you're reliable, I trust you," is actually cultivating a positive identity in his subordinates. And because humans tend to want to be consistent with their reputations, that person will work hard to maintain that positive label. We can see this principle in the world of education. A teacher who tells a student, "You're a smart kid. I know you can master this lesson," will instill tremendous self-confidence. The student will work hard to retain the smart label. Conversely, a child who is constantly called naughty will feel that being naughty is the only identity he has. Even in our personal lives, the words we use can determine the direction of a relationship. Couples who give each other positive compliments tend to be more harmonious. A husband who says, "I know you're always so considerate," encourages his wife to continue showing that attention. A positive label is not only an award, but also an invitation to continue being the best version of ourselves. Carnegie emphasized that giving a good name is not manipulation, but rather a way to bring out the best in others. When we place our trust in people, we are essentially lighting a lamp in their souls. That lamp will guide them not to disappoint the positive expectations we place on them. And ultimately, the lesson is simple, yet profound. If we want others to change for the better, don't point out their weaknesses. Give them a reputation to uphold, a good name to cultivate. Because humans, like the dog in Carnegie's story, will fight hard to deserve that beautiful name. The story begins in a cluttered workspace filled with piles of paper. At the center of it all sat a young employee slumped over his desk, his shoulders heavy with discouragement. He stared blankly at the computer screen, feeling like a failure. His manager walked up to him, noticing the troubled look on his face. Instead of immediately asking about the problem, the manager broke into a warm smile and said, "Don't worry, it's really simple. You just need to fix this little part. The rest is already correct. I'm sure you can get it done quickly." Instantly, the oppressive weight that had been pressing down on the young man's shoulders seemed to vanish. His eyes regained their focus, and his motivation returned, driving him to take swift and decisive action. This story beautifully illustrates a key principle from Dale Carnegie's book. How to win friends and influence people. Make the other person feel that the task you are assigning is easy to do. When people are faced with what seems to be an insurmountable task, their spirits can easily crumble. However, if we can convince them that the challenge ahead is not as daunting as they think, but rather a manageable and straightforward task, they will find the courage to take the first step. Once they begin, they will naturally find the strength to keep going. In his book, Carnegie emphasizes that we tend to magnify our mistakes and those of others to such an extent that they appear catastrophic. As a result, we or others may feel that we are incapable of correcting these mistakes. However, if we reframe these mistakes as requiring only minor adjustments, people will readily accept our corrections and take immediate action. Self-confidence grows not because the problem is small, but because we instill the belief that it can be overcome. Think of a math teacher, for example. Instead of saying to a struggling student, "You can't calculate at all," the teacher might say, "You understand the first step perfectly. We just need to work on how to multiply here." In this way, the student feels that they haven't completely failed. They just need a bit of improvement. This same principle applies to real life. When a friend is lost, they don't need harsh criticism that will make them feel even more helpless. They need someone to say, "I know this is hard, but you can start with small steps. Try doing just one thing today." Suddenly, the massive mountain that loomed before their eyes becomes a small hill that they can climb. Through this story and many others like it, Carnegie teaches us that mistakes are not a death sentence, but an opportunity to rise above. By making mistakes seem easy to fix, not only do we help others out of trouble, but we also restore their faith in themselves. And that kind of faith, more than anything else, is the most powerful fuel for change. So remember, friends, mistakes are a natural part of life. When you see someone make a mistake, don't make them feel like it's too big to fix. Make them believe that it's just a small step that can be quickly corrected. Because when the burden feels light, people dare to take action, and that courage will lead them to success. Imagine a commander on the battlefield. He knows his men are tired, weary, even afraid. If he simply orders in a loud voice, "Do this because I said so," perhaps his troops will obey, but without enthusiasm, without heart. However, a wise leader chooses a different approach. He speaks with conviction, painting a picture of honor, courage, and the great purpose that awaits. Suddenly, the order is no longer a burden, but a noble calling that every soldier is eager to fulfill. This is the final secret of the art of influencing that Dale Carnegie revealed. Make others feel good about what we suggest. Humans, by nature, don't like to be coerced. They want to feel that the decisions they make are of their own free will. If we can wrap our suggestions in hope, benefit, and a sense of ownership, then others will act willingly, even enthusiastically. Carnegie gives the example of how in the business world, a leader who says, "You have to work overtime because it's your responsibility," will likely trigger reluctance. But if he or she says, "I know you're reliable, and the success of this project will bring recognition to our team. I want you to be at the forefront of that success," then working overtime no longer feels like a burden, but but rather an honor. The right words can transform a daunting task into a source of personal pride. This principle also applies within families. A father who tells his child, "You must study hard or you will fail," may only instill fear. But if he says, "I believe you can be an inspiration. Studying today will pave the way for your big dreams," then learning transforms from an obligation into a journey toward the future. This is the art of making others happy to do something that might initially seem hard because they feel it's part of who they are. Finally, Carnegie concludes his series of lessons with a simple but profound truth. People are driven by feelings, not by commands. If we can make others feel proud, happy, and content with what we suggest, then we are not just influencing them, we are giving them a reason to act from the heart. An action from the heart will always be more powerful than mere obedience. So the next time you have to get someone to do something, ask yourself, how can I make them feel good about doing this? What kind of positive feeling will inspire them to action? If you can discover that, you will have unlocked the final secret of Carnegie's teachings. Do you ever feel like you're caught in a cycle where things just don't seem to improve? It's like no matter how much effort you put in, the results just don't match up? What if the solution to this problem was hidden in plain sight all along, waiting for you to unlock it? Imagine, if you will, that life is a grand journey filled with interactions. Each word we speak, every smile we give, and every way we treat others is a seed. These seeds have the power to grow into strong relationships, great opportunities, even new chapters in our lives. Now, the interesting thing is that these seeds are not planted in the ground, but in the hearts of the people we encounter. Think about it. The more warmly we speak to someone, the more they will appreciate our words, and the better they will feel. When we listen deeply to another person, showing genuine interest in their thoughts and feelings, we create a bond that goes beyond casual acquaintance. By appreciating people, celebrating their successes, and offering support during tough times, we sow the seeds of trust and mutual respect. Here's the fascinating part. It's not just about what we do, it's about the emotions behind our actions. As Dale Carnegie famously wrote, "The greatest secret to influencing people is not the tongue, but the art of understanding the human heart." But why is this so important? Why should we care about the emotions behind our interactions? Because that's where the real magic happens. You see, the world doesn't operate solely on logic or intellect. It's driven by emotions, trust, and mutual respect. When we focus on these elements, we become more effective in our interactions, more successful in our relationships, and more influential in our communities. But wait, there's more. By practicing these principles, we don't just impact the lives of others, but our own as well. When we choose to speak warmly, listen deeply, and show genuine appreciation, we create a ripple effect that comes back to us in the form of positive energy. We attract more kindness, more positivity, and more success into our lives. So the next time you find yourself feeling stuck or unmotivated, remember the power of a smile. It's the impact of a listening ear and the strength of sincere appreciation. Because these are the seeds that can help you break through any barrier and achieve your goals. If this story made you think, if this lesson felt relevant to your life, then don't let it end here. Let's keep the positive energy going. Subscribe to continue following inspiring stories like this. Share this video with friends or colleagues, because who knows? One sentence from Carnegie could change someone's perspective. Leave a comment. Which principle resonated with you the most, and how would you like to put it into practice today? Remember, the best version of yourself is waiting on the other side of your comfort zone. So take the first step today and let the journey begin.